Welcome to Drinks with Dee. Community, entertainment, and conversation.
Hey everybody, welcome to Drinks with Dee. It's already episode number 12. I've done a dozen of these. I'm a trained professional. Not really so much already. I am Dee Daniels. My special guest today is Roxane Romanick. Of course, I don't even know what kind of title to give you.
It's okay.
You do
I
it
think
all.
just momager.
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 That sounds like something that would be on one of those TV shows like...
Yes. Yes, that's Elizabeth's title for me, momager.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
Hope she says it fondly.
No, not always.
Momager of Elizabeth or everybody?
Yeah. No. Well. Yeah. In her context, just her.
Okay. So Roxane, I think pretty much everyone in the community knows who you are.
No,
you don't think so?
No. Well,
You've been on TV. You've done a lot. I mean, you're kind of been in the public forever and like working in the community because you're actually not from Bismarck, though. You're from a small town girl.
Little small town Class B girl, Edgeley, North Dakota.
Yeah. We have a lot of Class B girls on this show. I mean, it's like, it's funny. There's a lot of us small town chicks, and we all migrate to the big city to make it big. It's like the Mary Tyler Moore thing, but not really. Throwing our hats in the air kind of a thing. So when did you move to Bismarck, Roxane?
We moved in 1995.
So you were already married and...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we were on our, this was our fourth home.
Okay.
Yeah, we
95,
did a route
okay.
of Washburn, Colorado Springs, Moorhead, and then to Bismarck.
Okay. Yeah. So starting back in Edgeley, North Dakota,
Yeah.
farm kid, I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have siblings and stuff?
None, not a single one. But I grew up in a community of family. And so we were, maybe a quarter of a mile from my dad's homestead, maybe a couple miles from my mom's homestead.
Okay.
I had 3 grandparents that all were immigrated over here.
Okay.
So I'm really only a second generation American.
Oh, wow.
I know.
That's
I got to be
crazy.
careful, right?
So, I mean, do you have any family that still lives in Edgeley?
Oh, yeah. My mom's side, both sides,
Yeah.
both my mom and dad's side still there. But, so I grew up amongst a whole bunch of aunts and uncles.
Well, that's
and
kind of cool.
cousins,
I mean, I often, as a child, wished I was an only child because being the youngest of 6, it's like, you're kind of an afterthought. It's kind of like, and then I have a sister who's 14 years older than me, 4 brothers, and then me. So it's like, talk about being left, My brothers think I was extremely spoiled. I think I was not extremely spoiled. I always said to my husband, I always tell him, I felt like an afterthought. Like, oh, where's Dee at? Did we leave her somewhere? Because I was little and quiet. It's like, I don't know. Maybe she's in the neighboring town. She'll walk home eventually. But. So you met your husband where?
I met him at the University of North Dakota.
Okay, and what'd you go to school for there?
Well, I started out thinking I was going to be a physical therapist.
Okay.
And then I went out, worked at Camp Grassic for 3 summers.
Oh, awesome.
And decided that and my grades were a little bit like, that's not going to work. So then I switched it up to social work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you did that, and you met at school, and
Yeah. I met at some random fraternity party.
you were a frat girl. He was a frat boy.
He was.
He was a frat. And he's a judge now.
Yeah. Oh, that happens.
Oh, that does.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
is that a
happens.
prerequisite to becoming
Maybe.
a judge?
I don't
Be a
know
frat?
if it is.
At the next judge meeting, you should do a poll on that as
Do
well.
a survey.
Yeah. So then
Yeah.
you said you kind of circled the wagons a little bit, and then you ended up in Bismarck back in ~95.
Yeah. I headed out of UND in '81 and went to Devil's Lake, and I literally lived at a group home for students with emotional disturbance.
Oh, wow.
Because in those days, back in 1981, that's only like 6 years after the Education of Handicapped Children Act was passed for the first time. We would have children come in and board in town in Devil's Lake, and then they'd all go home on the weekends.
Oh, wow.
And so I actually lived at one of the group homes that
That's crazy.
the special ed unit lived, and did my social work internship, and then stayed there for another 4.5 years.
It's amazing. I always think, I'm 53, and I've talked to many of my guests here, and it's kind of, it's always funny. What you start going to school for and what you end up doing is always a complete, 180 or whatever. It's just funny. Because did you know Lorena used to work for a private detective? She's told me this.
No.
You have to ask her about that. I'm like,
That's
you
pretty
worked
good.
for a private detective? She goes, I was terrible at it. I go, But I'm like, I didn't even know they had private detectives here in Bismarck. So if somebody's snooping on you, I mean, I don't know.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, no, really, I think my trajectory feels a little boring because I literally like hung out with kids with disabilities in high school at the Ann Carlson Center. And when I said hang out, like it was those spotty, weird token, ingenuine situations where they would bus us up to, at that point, the Crippled Children's School, right? And we'd do parties for them and then leave. Like there were no sustaining relationships, but I was really comfortable there. It didn't freak me out. I had lots of friends who were kind of freaked out. I loved hanging out with them. And then the students that were there. And then I just kind of stayed engaged with like the disability community somehow.
It is its own little community. I mean, once, with my son, it's like, I never thought I'd be this person, like, being an advocate or being in that. And it's just kind of like, I didn't think I had it in me to like, you know what I'm saying? The way I grew up. So now it's like when you get in it and you roll up your sleeves, you're like, all right, what are we going to do now? What's the next thing we're going to do?
Yeah. Well, we always laugh because I went to school with Deneen Feist, who's the head of Family Voices in North Dakota. She was 2 years younger than me. And we are both like, if somebody would have said, 50 years ago, you guys are going to be disability advocates, we would be like, what are you talking about?
You've had too much to drink.
Yes, exactly.
I know. And me, personally, like an advocate for anything except for partying. I mean, I don't know. That's the only thing I used to advocate when I was younger. But I mean, if people probably are trying to place Roxane Romanick, of course, Deisgner Jeans, and you just stepped down as executive director.
I did. Yes.
After how many years?
Well, I got involved with Deisgner Jeans when Elizabeth was born, so it was 25 years ago. We think that the organization is very close to 40 years old.
Okay.
And it was a group of families who connected, wanted to hang out, support each other around issues related to Down syndrome. By the time Elizabeth came along, their kids were older, and they were kind of tired, maybe done with it a little bit. And so they kind of just handed myself and Sharon Goodman the checkbook, which is so funny today because I still have the same checkbook cover
that's funny.
With the blue tape on it because I just think it's symbolic. It helps us keep remembering where our roots were. And then we just kind of started to grow it.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I did, when she was born, when she was little, or we knew she was coming, I knew people. I knew other people, which was good.
Yeah, you guys have such an amazing community and connection. It's just there's so many families, and I mean that's the thing through the special needs world. You have people that you maybe wouldn't have met or been friends with, and then you have that commonality of a child with special needs or something. And next thing you know, I mean, I'm not a huge religious person, but I believe that God kind of throws you together with some of those people.
Yeah. Well, I think of all the people you wouldn't have met.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. I know people in the world. I know people across the country, and I know people across who are, other parts of the world who are connected to the Down syndrome community and the disability community. So I worked 15 years for BSEP.
Okay.
In the early intervention system, and then also for the state early intervention office. So then that actually broadened my exposure to a lot of different families, not just families who had kiddos with Down syndrome.
Okay.
So now, I mean, I met a ton of people while I was doing parent mentoring at that point. So yeah, I love the Strength Builders. I love the BizMan Strength Builders Facebook group because it's for everybody.
Yes, and no matter what your kiddo's been diagnosed with or anything. And there's a lot. I mean, I tell people too. I remember when Grant was. He regressed in a little before 3, before we actually got his diagnosis. And you kind of are walking around blind if you don't find a family member or a friend or someone can say, hey, there's this for you. Or who's a good doctor to go for vision or hearing that gets it, because a lot of people, even though they're medical professionals, don't get it. I've been to some of those, and I'm like, I had a doctor say, well, how do you know he's in pain? He can't talk. And I was like, I'm going to punch you in the face, But I mean,
I'm
it
his
is.
mom.
I know, but it's like, who says that as a medical professional, really? But it's just like, yeah, you have to and you have to advocate, and that's the thing. Yeah. I learned that even for myself when you have like health issues. It's like, I'm not crazy. Well, I am, but I'm not crazy when it comes to this kind of a thing.
What do you think's your first with Grant? What's your first memory of advocating, having to step out and not
with
sure?
Grant, it was like I knew something was wrong, and then I went to his pediatrician. He regressed pretty hard at 2 when my daughter was born, and like I talked to my friend, like he had words and then he stopped talking.
Wow.
And I kind of got withdrawn, and my daughter was a baby, and I remember saying to my friends, I think there's something wrong, and they're all like, oh, don't worry, he's just jealous of his sister. And then I went in another month and I had conversations with my husband, and I said, I think there's something wrong, and I researched it. Now I think it's autism. I mean, just from what I've read, because he wasn't talking anymore. Yeah. So I literally had to like go to my pediatrician and say, hey, what's going on? And they just go, oh, it's just delays. He's got delays. I'm like, how's it delays if he was talking and he's not? So then it was just me going, okay, whatever. Then I started him at speech and stuff somewhere. Not until I took him into the walk-in clinic here locally because he was sick. The walk-in clinic doctor looked at his file and goes, oh, he has autism.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And it's in the doctor wrote in the chart he has autism. And I called up that doctor. I go, why wouldn't you have told me that you suspect he had autism so I could go get him officially diagnosed instead of just referring me? And she's like, well, I don't, And I'm like, and I understand she was probably like how some parents would react to it. I mean, some people get very like, not my kid. And I'm like, I'm not that person. I want to be like, if it's my kid, let's get him into therapy.
I want to know. Yeah.
So like it was things like that. We've had to advocate at school, like in starting kindergarten and things where, they don't let me talk to the aides. I'm like, my kid's nonverbal, and they're like, well, no, that isn't the way it works. I go, no, that's the way you don't want it. Went to head of special education. So we've had lots of instances when he was younger. I do have to say now, where he's at Horizon, it's amazing, but we had some like bumps in the road where they were just kind of like, oh no, we don't do it that way. I go, well, why? You don't, or you don't want to?
Yeah.
So I mean, everything's a battle. I mean, most times I do have an amazing pediatrician now that's like, if I say I think we need to run this test, it's all right, well, not a problem, So, and it's hard because you want to all those medical professionals or whatever. They're supposed to be the experts.
I know.
And it comes to find out, you're like, oh, they don't. It's called practicing medicine for a reason. I always say that. But anyway, that was my tangent. I got on doing that.
I just did a speech, or I just did a session on leadership at the International Division of Early Childhood Conference, and I was like, okay, think about the first time you had to advocate for yourself. So this vision of my dad, we'd always go into town on Saturday night to go to the Tasty Freeze, right?
Oh yeah.
And I had to been like 8 or 9 or something, and my dad handed me some money and say, here, go get Mom and I this, and you get whatever you want, right? And I literally let 9 people go in front of me. And finally my dad got out of the car and just shoved me to the front of the line because I just was like,
my daughter,
they were here. They're like nudging in front of me. And I was like, okay, so that's what I had to work with, right? Like that, like I knew that's being this only child. I wasn't in conflict a lot with a sibling. I mean, I just didn't know how to handle that.
My daughter would do the same thing. She'd stand there because she didn't want to draw attention to herself.
Yeah, or hurt somebody else's feelings. You can go ahead. You go
it's
first.
Okay, I'm going to starve to death back here. I get no ice cream. They ran out of ice cream. So sad.
Yeah.
I think I was that way when I was younger, and people like who know me now, they're like, you were never quiet. I'm like, I extremely was quiet because I have friends from high school. When I came back to Bismarck and got on radio, they're like, I can't believe you're on the radio. You were the quietest thing there ever was. And I go, well, yeah, in front of you, but in front of my friends, I wasn't. But so, yeah, I mean, it is. I think I'm better at advocating for others, like my children, versus advocating for myself still.
Yeah.
I'm more likely, the mama bear thing comes out, and it's just like, don't mess with the kid.
It's hard to mess with the establishment, though. So we decided to take Elizabeth for her heart surgery to Texas. So that was probably the first big one. She was like 5 months old. And that is not what the medical professionals wanted us to do at all.
Oh, really?
They just, well, it was very different that somebody would, kind of like make some decisions over and above theirs. I think for one, because I think most of the time people are just in the passenger seat and the professionals drive the car, right? So when somebody exerts that, they're a little thrown off, and there was a reason why we did that, and I just remember like feeling like I was going to puke before I told them we were going to do this.
Yeah.
And then it was the major resistance about it.
And where did they want you to go?
Well, they wanted us to go to the cities.
Okay.
And we were headed down to Houston for the surgery. And, I'm sure there were some risks involved. I don't know if it was risky to fly with her at that point. But then, what if she had complications? I understood everything, but I also felt really comfortable about what we were doing. I felt really confident. But I did. I felt like I was going to throw up.
Isn't that terrible? You're so,
yeah.
I know. And if Grant's having a tough day at school, and they're amazing, they'll say, well, he did this, or he had like a behavior. And I'm like, I find myself constantly apologizing. I'm so sorry. But he did that. And I'm like, they're like, it's okay. I just wanted to inform you. I go, okay. I'm not going to ever stop apologizing, though, because that's just how I was raised. It's like,
Yeah,
I don't want to be that parent that's not my kid. There are those parents out there. But so when you were pregnant with your daughter, I mean, obviously back then, did you know that you didn't know?
There weren't a lot of prenatal diagnoses, 26 years ago or whatever. But we had remember when they do like a quad screen or a triple screen, so that came back abnormal, and we made a decision to do an amnio and found out she was going to be a girl.
Yeah.
And have
I actually had that with both my kids and with Grant, because they wanted to test too. They thought he might have Down syndrome because, I was a fossil when I had my children. I was 39 when I had him, and 40 with my age, and then I didn't realize they took your age and whatever blood type, and they did a little math equation, and they throw it at you. So I did the amnios with both of them too. Geriatric pregnancy. Isn't that the worst thing in the land? I've had friends over 35. They're like, how was the amnio? And I go, I didn't think it was bad. And they're like, that's just horrible to do with a woman. First of all, because you're so depressed when you're that old, being pregnant.
Right.
My daughter,
they're going to call it geriatric.
I know. I mean, I hope the medical profession doesn't. They do call it that, though.
No, it's a real
man,
thing.
we got to start a petition to stop that, because you feel bad. I remember going into the clinic with my daughter, pregnant at 41. My husband's 4 years younger than me, so he's still like, I'm in my 30s, and what's the problem? And I'm just waddling in there, and these little bouncy little 20-some-year-olds are blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I did say to my doctor one time, am I the oldest pregnant person in this clinic? And she goes, oh, no. And I'm like,
oh, yes.
Liar. But my husband, is funny. They were talking about this because he just read an article the other day. There was a study done. If you had a baby north of 40 years old, you're, how many more times likely to live to be 100?
Oh.
And then if you even had a baby like after the age of 33, I'm like, well, I'm going to live forever.
Oh, that's so good to hear, Dee.
And he said to me, and he goes, oh, it's because you're a mother and you need to nurture. I go, all mothers want to nurture. I go, I think it has to do with more like your hormones, if you're capable of having it. I don't know. That's just my doctor feelings and, my pop psychology kind of thing. Well, how old were you when you had your daughter?
I was 39.
Yeah. So
I was definitely geriatric.
Yeah. I hate that word.
Yeah, I know. So, yeah. And I wish, there's so many things that could have been better that day that we found out all that news. And so we've really worked hard to try to work with our medical community to get that message changed and then the support offered.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, and I was the same way too, and we had ours, because I had a couple of friends like, why are you getting the amnio? It is what it is. And I'm like, because I am a planner, so if there is something that is going on, I need to prepare for when he's born, like if we need to have like stuff, whatever. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, I just would, whatever. Because I could never, ever like be pregnant and not find out the sex either, because I have to plan.
You got to plan.
I have to, like, it's because I was 41 and my daughter, so being geriatric, I had amnio with her too, and I knew early that she was a girl. I'm like, I can get rid of all the boy stuff now. We're gonna get new stuff,
Let's do this
I'm
different.
a planner. My mom, like, when she never knew any of those, popped out. Oh, it's another boy. Okay.
Well, I think I was so grateful for knowing when she was born. I was so grateful that we knew before, because we are just so much more ready.
I know,
We're
and
just
that's the whole
ready
thing
to
of knowing.
be her parent, and really, I felt really strongly too that people knew that she had Down syndrome, because I didn't want it to sit in the middle of the table and for people to try to trip over it. And, be weird about it, and it worked. I think that's one thing we've done really well with her, is like for her to kind of embrace the diagnosis as a part of herself, and in many respects, she's not here, I shouldn't be talking for her, that goes. But I think that she thinks it's as great as, the fact that she was a century patriot. I don't know.
She's so outgoing. I don't know her very well, but she's always like the most outgoing, leader of the pack.
She's got a lot of presence.
She's not a wallflower.
No,
she wouldn't stand in the back of the line at the Tasty Freeze.
A lot of confidence. No, she would not. And then besides that, somebody would be buying her ice cream for her.
Chatting them up in the line. All of a sudden, hey, I'll get your ice.
Right.
Yeah, this says something about that, though. I
know. Yeah. So I do feel like whatever we did about that, we did an okay job with her understanding her diagnosis and living with it.
So do you feel like, when she was born, did you know a lot of, obviously you worked in the field or whatever, but especially Down syndrome, did you your family members and stuff? How did they embrace that?
Well, my family was, everybody was really great.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, everybody, we just kind of hit the road running when she was born. I think we all struggled beforehand, knowing how to talk about it, knowing how to talk with each other. So I wish I could change that a little bit, go back in time and change that. But then I'm just so grateful we are ready to go. So they were all really good. I don't really, to be quite honest, I feel like we've had the opportunity to live in a community that's really been open to disability. And so I can't even hardly tell you a time, Dee, where I feel like she's been discriminated against.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I would just plop her in a swimming class. Or I'd plop her in poor Michelle Stockert, who had her forever in dance. I would just plop her in and say, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And then if she needs supports, we'll figure it out. Yeah. Right? But,
well, I do feel like since Grant's diagnosis, like I said, he's going to be 14 here. So 11, 12 years, it's I do feel like things have changed so much even in that amount of time. In the beginning, 10 years ago, where was there to go? And now, there's so much stuff now that we never had before. Maybe I wasn't aware of it, but even just programs, there's swimming programs, there's other things that you can get involved in, and the peer-to-peer with the support.
Horseback riding.
I've had nothing about the older generation. When we had our coffee shop, I had older ladies come to me and go, so he's in a class with normal kids? They would say to me, and I would be like, yes. I'm like, that's offensive to say. You're out in public with normal people, aren't you? But that's
what is normal.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Who is normal's boring, by the way.
Machine.
But that's people I've had this conversation with people. We had a special education classroom in my small town, and they were in their own room. They never, were with us, where Grant is, he has an aide, but he's with his peers every day. And it was just and I know a lot of these individuals, they're married, they have kids. I'm like, why were they pushed off in that corner? And this was not even that long ago. This is
we
the
just
80s.
Weren't very smart about doing that. So I was probably a sophomore in 1975. So I mentioned before, we're heading into 50 years of the federal special education law. passed in 1975 and enacted. So I was a sophomore in high school, and an individual that lived in my little small town with Down syndrome moved back from Grafton, from being in the institution. That year, she would have been the same age, 15, 16 years old, and then started riding on a bus over to Lemoore for special education. But we never knew her. Yeah. Like she never came to like basketball games or
just isolated
hung out with us, or you know what I'm saying? But I mean, but cool that she could come home because she could finally be educated.
Yeah. I know.
I mean, so.
But there's still, like I said, there's people out there who still don't get it, though. It's just like, don't be afraid of somebody with special needs. Like, they don't know how to approach. I mean, when I talk to Grant's peer-to-peer all the time, Grant's completely nonverbal, and these kids are great. And then I explain to them, he understands everything you say. And they're like, really? I go, just because you're not getting that verbal feedback doesn't mean. I go, if you promise him a cookie and there's no cookie on that counter, he's angry. It's like anybody, you know? Right. So, I mean, that's the thing you need to educate. I mean, and ask questions. I always say, ask the questions. What do you want to know? He can't tell you what his likes and dislikes are, and I don't know all of them either, but I can tell by his reaction on things.
I know. I always tell, so Century's done this In Your Shoes project I don't know that they've done it this year yet, but then they would work with individuals with difference to create these shoes.
Okay.
And then they would they would exhibit them at the Capitol Gallery. And so I always go in and talk to them, and I was like, I love your project, but I really think that what you guys need to do for a week, like you need to not talk for a week, and you need to give up your car keys. Like, so if you guys really want to be in somebody's shoes,
that's
those two
great
things I think it's a little bit like wearing the black dress, right? For United Way, but those two things I think would really help you really see what life was like on the other side.
And how did they respond?
They're like,
to that?
Oh, they just get the shivers when you tell them you have to give up your car keys. Like, wow. I think they give up their voices before they would give up car
give
keys.
up their phones, but
yeah.
I mean,
It's
a whole.
Well, except that a lot of our individuals with disabilities now, their world rocks because of their phones.
I know. I just saw, and I can't remember the name of it now. I just saw. I think it's a movie coming out on Netflix about a girl.
Oh, yeah. In
the wheelchair, and then she got oh my God! I started crying. I was just like, because when she goes up to her dad, "Hi, Dad, how was your day?" And I'm like, just like,
well, technology is just blowing the roof off of it. And it's just so, here we use the word normal. Yeah. It's just so typical. Yeah. I mean, it's what everybody does, and it's just so accessible. And
it was funny. I don't know why we were thinking about this the other day. I think my daughter was reading a book, and we were talking about Helen Keller, my husband and I. Oh. And I'm like, how did they teach her, to communicate when you're blind and you're deaf and, you're nonverbal. I mean, that's to me is this, and they did this way back when, you know, and it's like, I mean, that's just amazing to me. And then she taught other people, and it's like,
I know,
there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. You're listening to Drinks with Dee. I got Roxane Romanick on the air with me today. All brought to you by Little Lights Pediatric Therapy. We're live on urlradio.net. I said live, but we're not really live. I lied. I got
nervous.
I'm a big fat liar now. I know on radio we did things live. It's like, just my thing when I was on radio, I was always like, I said to the guests, just don't swear. Just, that's the only thing I ever ask of you. So, no, I mean, where is Elizabeth roaming around these days?
Oh, yeah. Well, Elizabeth lives in Minot, so 100 miles away, works for the North Dakota Center for Persons on Disabilities up at Minot State.
And she went to school in Minot, correct?
She went to Minot for school, came home for a year. We had her back in the Bismarck area for a year, worked for BSEP, which is pretty cool. And then they opened up this job opportunity at Minot, so she applied, and off she went.
Well, she's not too far away. I mean,
no.
It's not like it's,
No, but I wish there was a train or a bus or a...
Yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, it's not that far unless there's a blizzard or something like that.
Yes.
So, I mean, you have an older child too, don't you?
I do. I have a rancher.
A rancher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he runs a ranch in northwest South Dakota.
Oh, okay.
Him, 3 dogs, 5 horses, or 6 horses, or 7 horses, and a whole bunch of cattle.
So did he ever have like challenges with having a sibling with special needs? Or do you ever say, maybe he didn't say it to you?
I'm sure he thought that she, they were 8 years apart, so I'm pretty sure he thought that she, like you, was spoiled. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I would say it's probably more that than anything else. Yeah. When he was, probably 10-ish or so, playing hockey, like all the little boys were into her, and then she'd make up name signs for them, and they'd laugh, and so that group of boys like is really special with her. Like they were so great with her, and the families were all really great with her. So I don't know. I mean, I think he would have to say whether he was adversely affected by
he never like
her.
made like any little comments, or
I think mainly because they were so far apart in age, and he was off doing his own jam, and maybe there were times when he was younger where she was, she had a pretty rough year or two health wise, that was difficult. I think, it's just different. Like you're your only child, and then all of a sudden this other thing shows up that's like demanding.
Yeah, my sister's 14 years older than me, and my one brother's 13. So really, it was like having another aunt and uncle. It was like really, they were gone like I was 4 or 5. It's like I was an aunt when I was 7. So it's like, no, because my daughter's she'll make those little comments like, I wish I had autism. I go, oh, Grace, why are you feeling sorry for yourself today? And I'm like, well, you get to do a lot of things he doesn't get to do. And so.
That's so interesting that you say that, because I was just at Verona at the Family Voices of North Dakota. We do a Parent Leadership Institute. And one of our guest speakers is a dad out of the Grand Forks area. And he said, that's what... And another parent advocate who was speaking said, that's what we want. We want like other kids to say, hey, I wish this was true about me. Like my kid with a disability has this going on. And it's like, because that's kind of how kids are, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's pretty cool that she says that.
Well, she says it like because she's trying to get me to do something for her. Like she wants something like special, And I'm like, and we do try to, because we're working on the Sib Shop stuff, we do try to take those times and just take her out on her own. Like she goes hunting with Dad. Grant's not going hunting with Dad, and she loves it. I don't know if she much likes the hunting, but the snacks they pick up at the gas station before they go hunting and things like that. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, and I'm excited for the Sib Shops just because I feel like they do. And then when I was
good
at
work on that, good work on that.
Yeah, when we're at the summit, we were at the conference last fall, and the speaker said it in a way that I was kind of like a light bulb came on, and she was like, siblings, people with special needs, that's their entire life. Like mom and dads will pass away. And then I was kind of like, oh God, yeah. I mean, because I've thought about what will happen to Grant after we're gone or whatever, but I never thought, wow, is she going to take him in? And then the speaker was also like, well, if she gets married and have children, that affects her entire family. So that's a big decision to make. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, this is deep, man. I was like, I know. And she's already said to me, I'll take care of Grant. And I'm like, you sure? Because you get mad at him. But he's a gentle giant with her too. She's way more ornery than he is.
But he may have more of an independent life than you realize.
Yeah. Oh, I know. We're already planning on Century next year. We're talking about Life Ed. We're already talking about that kind of stuff too. So.
We got to get that changed.
No,
we got to get Life Ed changed.
Why? What's going on with that?
Because it needs to be with peers. They need to be with peers their own age.
Oh, okay.
This is going to be a surprise if Danica Nelson is listening.
Dan. Oh, yeah.
That we got to get that. We got to get Life Ed moved up on the campus. Career Ed and the campus.
And I'm sorry, I don't know a lot about it. I just know because I've had really in the last year a lot of people ask me what think our life will be like after Grant's out of high school, and I go, well, that's an option at least for 2 years until Grace graduates. But I mean, I do feel like I need to educate myself a little bit more on that program.
Yeah.
I do know a few people who've graduated through.
Well, they've kind of bounced the location around now.
Okay.
They were at Hughes, then they went back all into their individual high schools, and now they're at the portable behind Century.
Okay. And that's just Century's the only location right now? Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely have to educate myself. I mean, a little bit more before we get to that.
Just put it on your to-do list.
Yes, I mean, I have a few years yet because, like I said, I mean, I have a Century kid next year, which is hard to believe.
I know, and it's so wild up there. I mentioned this before we got on the air about, we just had our Walk for Down Syndrome and the peer-to-peer programs in Bismarck Public Schools, but then also Mandan. They took one ginormous, I don't know if Mandan was in the picture, but one ginormous picture on the steps. There was over 200 kids.
Oh, God, yeah.
It was so
And this is a Saturday
moving.
when kids are giving up their time and coming on out
and
where
then
they could normally.
Helping, and they had inclusive football going on.
Yeah.
They rock that
I know.
place.
And I know they've been building. I mean, I think Sheila Peterson, I can't remember what she told me, but peer-to-peer really hasn't been in the community that long.
It's 10 years.
Yeah. And so
This
really
fall.
think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, what can we do in the next 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean,
we, Elizabeth went to Century as a freshman. She went out for cheerleading. That's probably the one time I feel like she was discriminated against. And I went to the first pep rally, and I was there early, and I was sitting in the gym, and everybody who used a wheelchair was assisted into the gym, and they sat down, or they stopped right by the door with all their instructional aids, and the instructional aids sat down. And I was like, and the other kids weren't in the gym yet, so I thought, well, maybe they'll they'll move once everybody else gets in. So everybody goes and sits in their classes, right? The seniors are together, juniors are together, but everybody used a wheelchair, didn't move. They just sat in this little pod with their instructional aid folks.
So they weren't mingling with
So
the rest
I'm
of
a
the
new
student
parent
body.
to Century, and actually Sarah Bohr, who's been the champion for peer-to-peer and the creator, a lot of content creator and energy creator. She was new to Century that year too. And I called Sarah and I said, Sarah, I didn't like that. And she's like, oh, Roxane, I know, I saw it too. And she said, I don't like it either, but I'm new and you're new. And I said, let's pull a group of families together and let's start talking about what we do different. And that literally, they had the class up and going in the fall.
That's
and
awesome.
it took, Mr. Madler to push it through as a course, because we didn't want just token activities. We wanted a class where kids who didn't have disabilities, kids with disabilities could learn about disability advocacy, the disability community. And that has just blown up.
We were talking before we were recording here too. It's like, it's just amazing, the kids. I mean, that when you ask them, like, why do you want to be in peer-to-peer? Because I know, like, in middle school, you have to be an 8th grader and so on. But and there I go, do you have someone in your family with special?
Yeah.
And I would say 75% of them are no. Some might have, like, a distant cousin, but they just, like, they want to help. They just, like, they want to make them feel included, and they have that empathy. They just have that. Whether it's good parenting or just that's just the way they're wired, it's just amazing.
Well, and the contagion's there too now. So it's they've included people. And interestingly, all 3 of the high schools all have kind of a different kind of culture and flavor to it, but nonetheless powerful and wonderful.
Yeah.
But I love that about it too. And then this energy in the middle schools.
Oh, yeah. They're really building on that. I mean, I know they're planning some big stuff for this year. So, like I said, last week, peer-to-peer, and they have the shirts now, the Horizon Huskies, peer-to-peer, and they were all the pumpkin patch. And Greg was back from in fact, the entire group of 8th graders from Horizon went to Medora in September. And it was a conversation about, okay, how's this going to work for Grant? And it was a longer day. That was my husband's and our only, thing. Okay, they weren't getting back till 6. And then a normal day, a little bit longer day. And they made it work with the aids being longer. They had the funding for it. And he had a great time. He came back he had a great time. And it's like, that's amazing, because I get a little teary-eyed when I get these emails are like, oh, it's the class trip to D.C., and things like that. Or the school dances that are going to be too loud. And I'm sitting there going, oh, Grant will never get to do this stuff, kind of a thing. But then when he gets to be included. I mean, I can't imagine. We're still trying to work to get him on a plane because I don't know how he'll react on a plane. But no, he does He's starting United Sound tonight again at their first night. So I mean, he might not always play, but he'll sit there and strum the little things, and it's just him being around, his peers and that group setting and things like that.
There's so much power to belonging.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And the funny part is, I always say too, it's just like I should just change my name to Grant's mom because I go places.
See, you could be a momager too.
I am too. We like to go up to Horizon Market once a week and get snacks, and there's these little girls that have been pampering Grant since like kindergarten, and they'll be like, "Hi, Grant," it's still like, and they're like teenagers, and they're still doing. It's hilarious, and Grant's like, "Oh God, these women won't leave me alone," And it is just great though. Or we'll be.
It is.
I think we were at the Ground Round last fall as a family, gonna go eat, and we're waiting for the hostess to seat us, and behind us there's this gentleman family, and he's like, "Hi, Grant." And I'm looking like, okay, weirdo. Like, how do you know my... And he's like, he looks at me, "Oh, no, my son goes to school with Grant." And I was like, okay. It's just like, they all know, they all say hi to him, and I think that's so great.
It's so great. And now I think the ripples out of this, because this is 10 years, right? So actually... Elizabeth graduated in 2018, and one of her classmates, who was in peer-to-peer with her, is now running the post-secondary ed program at NDSU and working on her doctorate. So her doctoral thesis was on the peer-to-peer program.
Oh, wow.
And she's continuing to research it. Plus, they're using peers in the NDSU program. And she and Elizabeth work on a few things together through their jobs. I mean, like, that kind of ripple effect is...
That is amazing. And I feel like peer-to-peer and like the SIB shops, like they're newer, but it's like just getting the word out. Because even like I've said to people, well, we're starting a SIB shop, and they're going, "What's that?" So, I mean, it's something fairly new to explain to people.
It
but
sounds like an ice cream drink.
Maybe we'll have some at the SIB shops.
Have a SIB shop.
Oh, that is a great.
Have sips
at the SIP shop.
Sips at the SIP shop.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister right there. Oh my God. No, but I mean the peer-to-peers. I mean, it's just amazing. It's just I don't even know. I mean, it's probably too much. Probably wouldn't work. But even at the elementary school level, you can meet. I feel you can even start that.
What was really amazing is that there were like they've have these pop-up little walks now, and so there were several at the elementaries at Bismarck Public School that
amazing.
They did for Down syndrome.
Because like I remember even like when Grant was little, and he'd be in these kids were just, and I would go every year and read a book, and these kids have questions, man. The questions they'd ask me, some of them were like, crazy off the wall. If I'd say something about Grant, "Oh, Grant likes trucks. I like trucks too." One day last week, I went down the street to mine, and the teacher would have to pull him back in. But it's I feel like it's like get in there and educate. That's how you start though too. Like now, like obviously being in middle school, I don't go talk to the class because they're everywhere. But the peer-to-peer is important because
we're so lucky. And actually, the Developmental Disability Council, the state Developmental Disability Council, is funding peer mentoring at BSC, which people don't really even know right now. So they're able to do peer mentor support around academics, independent living, social, recreational stuff out at BSC.
So if people just want to know more, they just go to their website, or how do you get the information?
That's a really good question. They're running that out of their disability services, that's not what they call it on BSC. So I'd have to think about that for a minute. Mandy Eberly is the main coordinator for it. Okay. And so that's what I'm saying. I think
that's amazing,
BSC is ready too. Yeah.
Like I said, I can imagine what the next 10 years is going to bring.
I
mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for this stuff. I mean, sometimes change takes a while, but
I wish we can get it figured out better for adults too, because I think our adults now, because we're really struggling with that workforce shortage, and our adults aren't having really rich, robust experiences. I I think, always in the day programs.
Yeah.
So
I have
wish
been
we
to a
could
few of the local businesses when I've seen special needs individuals working, and I'm like, I want to go and give like the owner or the manager of that business like a big hug and say, hey, I can name drop Pizza Ranchers and up north by me. I know a lot of those individuals. They used to come into our coffee shop, and they're like, hey, Dee, and I'm like, obviously some jobs are a little bit more difficult or fast-paced.
Yeah, we got to get people working.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to switch that topic, I'm just going to get on a soapbox for a minute, because I think we wait too long, and we think people have to be ready all the time, and so then we're trying to train them to be ready. And the truth of the matter is, I think we should just get people jobs and then allow them to fail sometimes, because they're going to fail. We all failed at jobs.
I've had jobs. The first day I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Nor do I really like what I'm doing.
Yeah,
either.
I'm going to fake it, but I like the paycheck.
Right. But we're just so... I think we put up a lot of roadblocks and make a lot of excuses and don't get people into work.
Yeah.
Younger and sooner.
Yeah.
And even if it's an unpaid internship or it's job shadowing or it's, because how do you ever figure out if you're not, if you don't access information the same way as other people and you're dependent on people giving it to you, then you have to have experiences and opportunities, like massive amounts. Colette Fleck would be a really great person to have on your podcast. She's a teacher down at Standing Rock. And she gives our transition-aged youth that are at school down there a lot of experiences.
Oh, wow.
They have a radio show.
Oh, wow.
They have some of the cool stuff going on down there. And
yeah, and if you're a business out there listening, you should just really reach out to. I mean, who would they reach out to?
Well, I think they could reach out to the public schools all have coordinators for the community-based employment education courses, and definitely they could reach out to our vocational rehabilitation office. Yeah, an office. I know MDU's been trying to do some work with one of our providers and VR. So, yeah, I think definitely give it a thought.
Well,
give it a shot.
What can it hurt? I mean, if you're short on staff and,
Yeah.
And I guarantee you they're going to show up for work.
I know. Well, maybe if we could get transit running.
Yeah, well,
specifically on time. But other than that, yes, they are going to.
We can't fix everything like in a 1-hour podcast.
Can we? Could we, Dee? Could we fix it all?
Oh, man.
We've covered a lot of stuff.
We have covered a lot of stuff. Well, I'm speaking of the Roxane Romanick. It's Drinks with Dee, all brought to you by Little Lights Pediatric Therapy. You can check them out at littlelightspediatrictherapy.com, on urlradio.net. And I like to end my podcast with 5 questions because it's and they're easy. Oh, God. She's like, whoa.
5.
It's nothing. It's not like asking your PIN code to anything like that. It's just like, it's for people get to, you probably won't remember. I'm really bad with passwords. I'm like, you can't use the same password for everything, but why not? That's the only one I remember. Then my daughter gets my passwords and she's in my Google account. I have a YouTube account, which I'm never on. And I went in the other day, I was going to post something in my podcast and she took it over. Now it's got her name on it. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I don't know. I'm in a podcast too. I'm like, no, you're not.
Yeah. You need a Sib Shop podcast now.
You know what? I'm having...
that would be fun.
I'm having Chris Ann and Scott from Little Lights on next. We're going to talk about because we're having our first Sib Shop November 2nd to get people in. But yeah, I mean, we definitely will do that because
that's cool.
This is what it's all about. So, Drinks with Dee, Roxane Romanick.
Yes.
What is your favorite hobby or activity?
Oh, man. I like to be lazy sometimes. I like to watch TV series, read a book, play strands and connections.
Oh.
Nothing very,
nothing too
wild.
crazy?
No. Garden, flowers, love flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite food?
Savory, salty, crunchy, chips and salsa.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially on
way
a
over
warm
a
day.
donut. Way over a donut or a cookie. The two
really?
are sitting chips and salsa, yeah.
Oh, at certain days I'm like that with a margarita on the side. Usually the best way to go.
Forgot about talking about that.
What's your favorite movie or TV show?
Oh, man. Gosh sakes. I just watched, it's so stinking cute. I think it's called Trying. It's this cute little British couple who are trying to have a baby, and then they adopt on Apple. I still really love Miss Congeniality.
Oh my God, that movie's great. I love Sandra Bullock. Yeah,
just makes me crack up.
She is, and
movie.
how they can make her look like whatever. And I'm like, she's still good looking in the beginning of the movie.
Belly laugh over it.
I know. It's just. I just love her kind of in anything.
Yeah.
Except for that Bird Box one. I never got. Was that one in which she was blind in the boat or whatever? That was years ago. Yeah. And I was like, I can't watch this. This is just way too
I just
weird.
Watched Practical Magic. I hadn't watched
Practical
Magic.
Her and Nicole Kidman.
Because we were in Whidbey Island, and that's where it was filmed in Coopville. Yeah, really? So we had to go watch it.
Yeah, she's been around a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe she'll be on my podcast. Sandra Bullock?
I bet she would.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Are you listening?
You know, once this is downloaded off her URL, it goes everywhere. Anyone can listen anywhere in the world. I could say universe because I don't know if aliens listen to podcasts. I don't have the stats on that one, but something people don't know about you.
Oh, let's see.
Are you an open book?
I used to play organ in church.
Really? Mm-hmm. Not sing, just play.
Oh, I can sing. I mean, like, I'm not great. I mean, like, super great.
Yeah.
But I was an organist. I never took piano lessons, only took organ lessons. And then started playing church in probably middle school or something.
So is organ really that much different than the piano?
Well, you got to play with your feet.
Oh.
At one point, I could play with both feet.
Okay.
But I don't know if I could do that now.
That's a workout.
I know it's a workout. That's the problem. My knees hurt.
Wait, I can't play. Injury timeout, right?
Right.
Halfway through Amazing Grace. Oh my God. All right. And the final question, Drinks with Dee. What is your favorite drink? Alcoholic, non-alcoholic, both, you know?
Oh, man. Gin and tonics in the summer, but you can't drink those in the winter, so then it's Crown Gingers.
Oh, only in the summer. What happens if you drink those in the winter? Some bad things happen.
It just feels wrong.
Yeah. It is more refreshing as like a summer type.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I have no desire to have a gin and tonic, like now even. Although I'm going to the lake for the last time. We're going to clean up.
It's supposed to be nice the next couple days.
I know, so I'll probably have a gin and tonic. It is October. It doesn't really go with pumpkin spice. It doesn't really, it's not the right color. But then I switch over to Crown Gingers, and that's golden, you know, warm
on. Where's your lake at?
Audubon.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I'm that way. I like wine, but I can only drink wine colder weather because when I drink wine when it's warm out, I get really like flush.
I have the same issue. I drink rosé in the summer, and then I drink cab in the winter.
I'm mostly a beer girl, but my problem is, you know, beer's not the best for you.
But that's a good crossover drink. Yeah, summer, winter, winter.
Well, we're going to Vegas, so there'll be probably lots of everything being drank. Margarita. It's the 90s.
I thought we were gonna drink. Now
we can. If you can bring your own, it's BYOB.
I forgot to ask you.
No, we were on URL. Stacy will let us do anything we want.
We could have had Bloody Mary.
Well, my problem with this is, you know, when I record these, it's the afternoon, and it's like, well, I don't know if I can pick up my kids from school if there's alcohol in my breath.
There's a problem.
You know, social services come into your house.
I know.
Really
well, good luck with Sib Shops.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, and we'll spread the word.
So
like I said, November 2nd is going to be our date. And we'll have stuff on the on social media, but, you know, it's all brought to you a Little Lights Pediatric Therapy. With the Grants Grant Foundation, we're kind of teaming up and helping, doing a few things. I'm just kind of the one in the background, kind of go, Chris-Ann, what do you need? What do you supplies or everything like that? So it's exciting. I'm excited to see it grow, and hopefully we get a really good response from it. So talking with Roxane Romanick, anything else we want to throw out there?
I would just say, you know, open up the doors to people with disabilities. I think you nailed it when you said you got to know people, you got to have relationships, and give people a chance. Give them a chance to be your friend, to be your employee, whatever.
It's so funny. I pick up Grant from school, and there's some kiddos there with Down syndrome, and I don't really know them. A couple we knew, they've gone over to Century. But this one little girl came up to me the other day. I was picking up Grant, and she comes up and hugs me, and the teacher's like, she's looking at me like, is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. I'm like, hey, how are you? It's like, and she's like, yeah, well, some people don't like that, and I'm like. everybody could use a hug once in a while.
That's what I love about our walk is because hugging is allowed that day. I mean, if you're trying to work on things, don't work on it on the fourth Saturday of September.
I feel that was one of the biggest challenges during COVID was having a special needs kid and and not being able to touch things or whatever because people were going to react to things. Oh, I know. And I put my hand in my mouth and I touch something and people are like, what? I'm like, yeah, whatever. Put some dirt on it, you'll be fine. That's kind of my solution for everything.
Well, but keep up the good work, Dee.
Yeah, thanks again. And once again, Roxane Romanick. I didn't even ever say your title, but Mrs. Momager.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm
episode
going for
12
right
with
now.
Drinks with Dee. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today.
You've been listening to Drinks with Dee. Find out more on Facebook.